There are moments in a year that are quiet, not dramatic, often easy to overlook, yet they quietly decide the direction of an entire cycle ahead. And for Aries, the first 7 days of February are exactly that kind of moment. These are not days marked by obvious events or sudden turning points, but a time when energy is planted very deep. Deep enough to shape your entire year of 2026, in ways many people will only realize after they've already gone too far down the road. During this short window, fleeting thoughts, small choices that seem insignificant, and even the emotions you try to hide, are being noticed by the universe. And in the next 30 minutes, you'll begin to understand why just these 7 early days of February can activate your spiritual journey, your career path, and even the soul mission of an Aries in 2026. If you feel that your life is standing at a quiet threshold right now, leave a gentle affirmation in the comments. I am ready to move with the flow the universe has prepared for me. This isn't just a sentence. It's a signal. A clear message sent to the energy that's already guiding Aries forward. And if what you're about to hear resonates with you, take a moment to like and share this video. Because when an Aries lives in alignment with their own light, that courage doesn't stay personal. It spreads. And it strengthens others as well. But to truly understand why these first 7 days of February carry such weight for Aries, we need to begin with something deeper than time, deeper than fate. We need to look at the soul nature of Aries itself, and why you are always placed at the very beginning of the zodiac wheel. Aries is not an easy sign to live as. And if you are an Aries, you likely sensed this very early in life. Even before you ever knew anything about astrology, there is a familiar feeling many Aries carry for years. The feeling of having to step forward, even when no one has asked. To make decisions before others are ready. To be strong, even while uncertainty lives quietly inside. This is not an accident. It is the soul imprint of someone born at the starting point of the zodiac cycle. In astrology, Aries is ruled by Mars, the planet of beginnings, action, and raw courage. But Mars isn't just surface-level strength. At a deeper level, Mars is the first push that turns an idea into reality. It's the moment the soul decides to move forward. Even without a map, even without guarantees, even without anyone walking beside you. When you carry Mars energy, you weren't born to wait for the world to be ready. You were born to activate the world. As the first sign of the zodiac, Aries has no blueprint to follow, no template, no detailed instructions, no pre-written path. And that is both a blessing and a burden. A blessing, because you have absolute freedom to become whoever you choose. A burden, because that freedom comes with responsibility, the responsibility of the path opener. When you walk the wrong way, no one corrects you. When you walk the right way, there's no guarantee anyone will notice right away. But either way, you are still the one who has to take the first step. From my personal perspective, I've always believed this. Aries was never meant to walk paths that already exist. Because once you simply follow a path, it loses its original meaning. You were born to create routes for those who come after you, even when that work feels exhausting, lonely, or misunderstood. And this is the first human lesson Aries offers the world. Not everyone has the privilege of going first, but those who do carry part of the collective responsibility for everyone else. Many Aries grow up feeling like they have to be okay faster than others, grow up sooner, recover quicker after setbacks. You rarely allow yourself to stay vulnerable for long. Not because you don't feel pain, but because somewhere inside, you believe that if you stop, everything else will stop too. And sometimes, that belief becomes so heavy that you don't even allow yourself to admit how tired you are. You don't say it out loud, but quietly, you keep asking, why do I always have to be the strong one? Courage, for Aries, has never meant the absence of fear. Courage means moving forward, even while your heart races, your hands tremble, and your mind is filled with unanswered questions. Society often praises Aries for confidence, but rarely sees the other side, the very human uncertainty you carry every time you stand at a new beginning. And perhaps the greatest life lesson Aries teaches others is this: bravery is not a feeling, it's a choice. You often feel like you arrive one step ahead of everyone else. In thought, in perception, in action. And that position can feel deeply lonely, because when you sense something coming, others don't see it yet. When you feel a shift forming, others are still hesitating. And in those moments, you're forced to choose. Wait to be understood, or move forward alone. You don't always choose perfectly, but you are almost always the first to choose. If you're an Aries listening to this right now, ask yourself one honest question. How many times have you been strong for everyone else? How many times have you been the support, the decision maker, the one carrying responsibility, while quietly wishing someone else could hold you for a change? If that question touches something inside you, leave a short comment below. No explanation needed. Just allow yourself to be seen. What few people ever tell Aries is this: you are not wrong for being tired. You are not weak for needing rest. And you are not betraying your soul mission by allowing yourself to slow down. In fact, an Aries who understands their own rhythm becomes a far more sustainable guide, because the true path opener is not the one who runs the fastest, but the one who walks far enough for others to follow. And this is where the first 7 days of February take on a very personal importance for you. For a sign born to initiate, the moment of intention matters even more than action. These days don't ask you to do anything big. They quietly ask one question instead. What are you preparing to open for yourself and for the year 2026 ahead? You may not see results right away. You may not fully understand the direction yet, but if you listen closely, you'll notice that during these early February days, the way you think about yourself, the way you speak to yourself, and the way you define courage are beginning to shift. And when the way you see yourself changes, the path ahead changes with it. If at this point you feel something awakening inside you, take a moment to like this video, not to support me, but to confirm to yourself that you're listening to your soul more seriously. And if you know another Aries who carries the quiet loneliness of being the one who walks ahead, share this video with them. Sometimes, simply knowing you're not the only one is enough to keep going. But the story of Aries doesn't end with the nature of the soul, because once you understand who you are, another question always appears. Clear, unavoidable. Where is this initiating energy actually leading you in the year 2026? And it's right here that the role of the first 7 days of February begins to reveal its true weight, in a way very few people recognize at first. There are periods in the year that, from the outside, look completely ordinary. No clear signs, no major events, no dramatic shifts demanding attention. Yet these are the moments when energy is recorded the deepest. Early February is one of those moments, especially for Aries. Not because something is about to happen right away, but because something is quietly forming inside you. As the sun moves out of Capricorn, the sign tied to structure, responsibility, and everything that has already been built, its light begins to shine somewhere else, toward meaning, toward personal vision, toward a very human set of questions. Everyone asks at least once in their lifetime, where am I going? What am I really living for? And does this still fit the person I'm becoming? For Aries, these questions are never just passing thought. They land deep, because you need to feel that you're moving in the right direction. At the same time, Mars, the ruling planet of Aries, begins activating a deeper layer of will. Not the kind of energy that pushes you to act immediately, but the kind that asks you to look honestly at what's driving your actions. Why do you want this? Why does that exhaust you? And why do some things that once filled you with fire now feel so heavy? This isn't weakness, it's the maturation of your will. During this phase, many Aries notice they become quieter, more reflective, less impulsive. And if you're used to seeing yourself as someone who's always moving forward without pause, this shift can feel unsettling. But in truth, this is the moment when your will and your intuition begin to meet. Action no longer comes before reflection. It's guided by a deeper understanding of who you really are. From my personal perspective, as someone who's observed many Aries cycles over the years, this is what I see clearly. The first 7 days of February don't ask you to prove your worth. They ask you to listen. Because in astrology, some moments aren't measured by outcomes. They're measured by the quality of intention. And this is one of those moments. What you think during these days tends to become the foundation belief for the entire year. What you choose, even silently, begins shaping your long-term direction. And what you believe about yourself and about life will repeat itself in different forms throughout 2026. Not as punishment, not as reward, but as honest reflection. The universe doesn't force Aries down a specific path. It simply responds to how truthful you are with yourself. You may not make any obvious decisions during these 7 days. You may not change jobs, end a relationship, or begin a new one. But if you pay attention, you'll notice something subtler happening. The way you see the future is shifting. Things that once frightened you may no longer feel as powerful, and things that once excited you may not be enough to keep you staying. That's intuition speaking, and we're learning how to listen. You don't need to do anything big right now. You don't need to prove that you're strong, decisive, or always ready to fight. You only need to be honest with your deepest desire. Honest enough to admit that some paths you walked were chosen because you thought you should, not because you truly wanted to. And honest enough to allow yourself to change your mind without guilt. To society, Aries is often seen as the symbol of action, of fearless leadership. But at a deeper human level, the greatest gift Aries brings to the world isn't just courage. It's the ability to live in alignment with original intention. When an Aries lives out of alignment, you don't just exhaust yourself, you unknowingly send a distorted message about strength. But when you live true to what you believe, your presence naturally becomes a very real source of inspiration. If, as you're listening, something gently touches you inside, pause for un moment. Ask yourself, if you could choose your direction again, what would you choose differently? You don't need to answer out loud, but if you're willing, you can leave that thought in the comments. Sometimes, writing something unfinished is how healing quietly begins. And if you're noticing that during these first days of February, you're seeing things more slowly, more deeply, and more honestly, take a moment to like this video. Not to acknowledge the content, but to acknowledge the quiet transformation happening within you. Because many of the most important changes in life don't arrive with noise. They arrive in stillness. When we finally give ourselves time to listen. What's interesting is this. When intention is planted in the right place, action follows naturally, without rushing, without forcing, without needing proof. At this point, Aries is no longer charging forward on pure instinct. You're walking with a direction, felt clearly from within. And that's exactly why the first days of February carry such weight. They don't create immediate results. They determine the quality of everything that comes after. If you know another Aries who feels confused, slowed down, or uncertain right now, share this video with them. Not to convince, but to remind them that this feeling isn't weakness. It's a sign that a new cycle is forming. And when that cycle ripens, you'll see energy begin to move outward. From intention to action, from feeling to form, from inner knowing to a tangible path. From this moment on, what was planted during those first 7 days of February will no longer remain only in thought. It will begin shaping your personal journey in 2026. Always unique to you, and deeply aligned with the true nature of Aries. And to truly understand how this energy plays out in real life, we need to go even deeper into how choice stops being an idea and begins becoming a lived journey. Because once intention has been planted, what follows doesn't arrive as loud action. It arrives as a subtle shift in how you see yourself. For Aries, career has never been just a job. It's always been tied to identity, to the feeling of, who am I when I stand in this world? And that's why any change in your core energy will sooner or later reflect in the path you choose to contribute, to act, and to affirm your presence. When Mars combines with that opening energy activated after early February, a new career cycle begins to take shape. But this cycle feels very different from your past beginnings. It doesn't carry the same pressure to prove yourself, to win, or to move faster than everyone else. Instead, it asks a deeper question, and sometimes a harder one to face. What does real success mean to you? At this stage of your life, so many Aries have lived on pure momentum. You move fast, decide fast, advance fast. You can reach milestones that take others years to touch. And yet, because of that, there comes a moment for many Aries when everything looks fine on the outside, but inside, something feels strangely empty. Not because you lack success, but because the version of success you built no longer matches the person you're becoming. This is when Mars begins to change. How you measure value. You start realizing that titles, position, and outside recognition aren't the only proof that matters anymore. And you begin asking yourself a question that won't leave easily. Am I truly living up to my real potential? Or am I just repeating an image I once thought I was supposed to fit? From my personal perspective, this is the truth. Aries doesn't need a label to know their worth. Because from the beginning, you've been the one who creates movement. You create value through action. Through daring to begin. Daring to experiment. Daring to take responsibility for your own choices. And when you measure yourself only by what's attached to your name, you shrink the very power that makes you Aries. In this cycle, you may feel a strong pull to change the way you work, not necessarily to switch careers overnight, but to change how you show up inside the work you're already doing. You may lose interest in competing at any cost. You may no longer want to throw yourself into races where the reward doesn't make you feel alive. And that doesn't mean you're losing your Aries fire. It simply means your fire is evolving from burning to warming. At a deeper human level, success has never been about beating other people. Success is waking up each morning without betraying yourself. Success is using your energy for what truly needs it. Success is no longer forcing yourself to play roles that have become too tight. And Aries, with your pioneering nature, is often the first in your circle, your family, your community, to challenge the definition of success itself. Maybe you've asked yourself, in a very private moment, if I stopped being afraid, who would I become? If I wasn't afraid of failure, of judgment, of starting over, what path would truly call my name? That question isn't here to be answered immediately. It exists to open a new space inside your mind. A space where choices you once pushed aside can be revisited with a gentler gaze. In this season, you may realize you don't want to work just to prove you're capable. You want to work to create meaningful impact. You want your actions to contribute to something larger than personal ego. And this is where the Aries mission begins separating from pure ambition. You stop asking, how much can I achieve? And you start asking, what can I bring? If any of this is landing in your heart, if you feel it might be time to live in your real potential, instead of chasing an old image, leave a small sign in the comments. No explanation needed. Just a quiet way to confirm that you're ready for a different way of living, a different way of working, one that's more honest to who you are now. And I also want to say this, because it matters. This kind of change isn't always comfortable for Aries. Slowing down to listen can feel harder than charging forward. You might feel temporarily lost, like you're standing at a crossroads without a clear direction. But it's inside that silence that your true mission finally has room to speak. What many Aries don't realize is this: you don't need to see the entire path to begin. You only need to know what the next step is, the step that feels the most honest. And when you place that step down with awareness, the steps after it begin to appear, not because you calculated everything perfectly, but because you stopped fighting your intuition. If you look back on your own life, you'll notice something. Your most lasting successes never came from trying to become someone else. They came from the moments you allowed yourself to be fully you, without permission, without explanation, without needing anyone to validate it. This new career cycle opening after early February carries a soft but unmistakable reminder. Your real value isn't measured by how much you can do. It's measured by how deeply you dare to live in alignment with who you truly are. And if you're an Aries who has spent years holding up a strong image, maybe it's time to lead in a different way. Not with pressure, but with clarity. Not through competition, but through honest presence. When you do that, your impact on others becomes far deeper, even when you're not trying. If you feel a quiet desire inside you to change, to work in a way that feels more meaningful, share this video with another Aries you trust, someone you believe is standing at a similar threshold. Sometimes, a reminder at the right moment is all it takes for someone to realize they're not alone. But no matter how your career and mission shift, there's something even more important waiting ahead. Because for Aries, the greatest challenge has never been only in the outside world. The real challenge lies in how you face yourself. When there's no one left to compare to, no title to cling to, and no race to distract you from what you feel the deepest. And it's right there that the next part of your journey begins to open. There's a truth people rarely say out loud about Aries. Behind that strong, decisive, forward-moving exterior is a heart that feels incredibly deeply. So deeply, you don't always know where to place your emotions. You can sense the air changing in a room. You can feel the silence between two people before a single word is spoken. And you can even feel wounds others haven't found language for yet. But because you're used to carrying things, you often choose to stay quiet and keep moving, instead of stopping to listen to yourself. In emotional astrology, Aries doesn't learn love through romance or dependency. You learn through impact, through connections that arrive quickly, burn bright, and leave an echo that lasts a long time. Through loving with everything you have, giving more than what's needed, and only realizing you crossed your own limits when it finally starts to hurt. Not because you don't know how to love, but because you forget that love also needs rhythm. It needs pauses. It needs space. It needs room for two people to exist side by side, without either one having to hold everything up. The greatest emotional lesson for Aries in this phase isn't about loving more or loving less. It's about learning patience with other people's emotions and with your own. Patience isn't waiting in helplessness. Patience is allowing things to unfold at their natural pace, instead of rushing, just to feel safe. For an Aries, who's used to moving fast, loving fast, deciding fast, this lesson is not easy. And yet, it's this very lesson that becomes the key to deeper, more lasting connections. You may have found yourself in relationships where you were always the one leading, the initiator, the protector, the one carrying the weight. And in that role, you were very good. But deep inside, there has always been a quiet part of you that longed to lean on someone, to be vulnerable without being judged, to be silent without having to explain yourself. And each time that need wasn't met, you put on another layer of strength, a little thicker than before. From my personal perspective, after observing the emotional journey of Aries for many years, this is what I believe. You are strong, but that doesn't mean you have to carry everything alone. True strength isn't measured by how much you can endure. It's measured by knowing when to share, when to pause, and when to let yourself be loved as you are. When you're always the one giving more, you quietly place yourself in a position of control, just to avoid getting hurt. And over time, connection turns into burden. The human value Aries brings to the world emotionally is not silent sacrifice. It's the lesson of connection, without self-erasure. Love is not dissolving yourself into another person. Love is standing side by side, each person remaining fully themselves. When you try to control a relationship, to feel safe, you don't just suffocate the other person. You stop breathing freely yourself. There's a very private moment many Aries experience, even if they rarely speak about it. It's the moment you realize you're fighting inside a relationship that never required a fight. You're trying to prove, trying to hold on, trying to fix, when what you truly needed was simply permission to be yourself. And when that realization arrives, it often comes with a very quiet sadness, not dramatic, not loud, just the exhaustion of always having to be the strong one. You don't need to fight in love. You don't need to compete for attention. You don't need to prove your worth. You don't need to turn yourself into a more acceptable version. You only need to be yourself and be loved in that state. When you step out of the role of the one who carries everything, you create space for someone else to become a true partner. And that's when relationships begin to shift from tension to nourishment. During this time, it's very possible that your relationships will change tone. Some may slow down, some may fall away, and some, if you allow it, may deepen in ways you've never experienced before. Not because other people changed, but because you changed how you show up. You stop reacting immediately. You begin listening more, not just to words, but to what's left unsaid. If you're listening right now, and something feels deeply familiar, pause for a moment. Ask yourself this gently. Have you ever had to act strong so no one would see how much you were hurting? Not to blame yourself, but to recognize that strength once helped you survive, yet may no longer be necessary for where you're going next. And if you're ready, you can leave your thoughts in the comments. Sometimes, being heard at all is already part of healing. When Aries begins healing emotionally, the first thing that changes is not other people, it's how you treat yourself. You allow yourself to rest without guilt. You allow yourself to need others without shame. And you allow yourself to step away from relationships that demand too much armor. This is not selfishness. This is emotional self-respect. If this part feels like it speaks for you, take a moment to like this video as a reminder to yourself that your emotions are valid. And if you know another Aries who hides sadness behind a strong exterior, share this with them, not to analyze, but to let them know they're more understood than they think. Because when your inner world begins to heal, the energy you carry into 2026 changes completely. You no longer enter relationships from a place of defense. You no longer love from fear of abandonment or loss of control. You love with presence, with calm, with honesty. And from that foundation, the next door on your Aries journey opens naturally. No forcing, no fighting, just timing. There's a common misunderstanding about important years in a person's life. We often believe they demand more effort, more speed, more achievement. But when we look at longer astrological cycles, especially for Aries, the year 2026 carries a very different message. It doesn't ask you to accelerate, it asks you to choose the right direction. Many Aries have spent years in constant forward motion, doing more, carrying more, deciding more, living with the belief that if you stop acting, everything will collapse. But 2026 is not a year that rewards urgency. It's a year that responds to precision of choice. You can move very fast, but if the direction no longer matches who you're becoming, speed only takes you further from yourself. From my personal perspective, after watching the long arc of Aries journeys, this truth stands out. You were born to lead, but a good leader is not someone who charges blindly. A true leader knows where they're going, why they're going, and what is truly worth leading toward. When direction is unclear, your strength can turn into pressure for yourself and for those who follow you. The year 2026 places Aries in a very unique position. No longer the one who has to prove, no longer the one who must hold up an image. This is an invitation to become a different kind of leader. Not loud, not extreme, not driven by raw force, but guided by inner clarity and personal responsibility. Personal responsibility, for Aries, does not mean carrying everything on your own. Responsibility means knowing what is truly yours to hold and what you are allowed to release. It means being brave enough to step forward when your presence is needed, and just as brave to step back when your presence no longer serves what is right. When you live in alignment with that kind of responsibility, you teach the world something deeply important. Strength does not live in control. It lives in conscious choice. Courage in the year 2026 no longer looks like bold leaps into the unknown. Courage now looks quieter. It looks like not following the crowd just because you're afraid of being left behind. It looks like not continuing down a path simply because you've gone too far to turn back. And it looks like having the honesty to admit that some dreams once fit you, but no longer fit the person you are today. This is a softer kind of courage, but its impact reaches much further. From here, a new form of Aries leadership begins to emerge. Leading with compassion does not mean becoming weak. It means you don't use fear to push people forward. You don't use power to control, and you don't use self-sacrifice to bind others to you. You lead by living in alignment with your values, so those around you choose to follow, not out of pressure, but out of inspiration. The world today does not lack strong people. What it lacks are people conscious enough to use their strength in the right places. And this is exactly where Aries can offer the most in 2026. When you stop trying to prove who you are, your presence becomes lighter, but your influence becomes deeper. You don't need to speak loudly. The way you live already sends a message. You may have once believed you were born to fight, but at a certain point, you realize the hardest battle is not with the world. It's learning to live in harmony with yourself. And when you do, the world begins to respond differently. Not because you've grown weaker, but because you've grown more real. The world doesn't need another strong person. The world needs an Aries, who lives in alignment with their heart. An Aries who knows what they believe in, what they stand for, and who is willing to act on that truth. Without noise, without spectacle. When you live that way, you don't just lead others forward. You create a space where others feel safe enough to live more honestly as well. If as you're listening now, you feel a gentle settling inside, that is not a sign of slowing down. It's a sign that direction is being established. And if you want to acknowledge this moment for yourself, you can leave a short reflection in the comments. It doesn't need to be long. It just needs to be real. Sometimes, saying something aloud is how it becomes clear. If this message has offered you a new perspective on the year 2026, share this video with those you trust, who may also be searching for their own direction. Not to convince them, but to remind them that everyone has the right to choose a path that matches their own rhythm. And now, as everything begins to settle, as you see more clearly who you are and where you're going, there is still one important thing you need to carry with you. Something that doesn't belong to astrology, doesn't belong to prediction, but lives in how you meet each moment of life. And before we close this journey, this is the most important thing to remember. When you look back at everything we've explored, especially if you're an Aries, who's used to living through action, remember this: not every turning point arrives with upheaval, not every change needs noise, and not everything that shapes your future begins with a clear decision. Some of the most important things in life are planted very gently, in moments when we are just quiet enough to notice. The first 7 days of February are exactly that kind of moment. They are not a prophecy telling you who you must become. They are not fate forcing you down a predetermined road. They are a door opening softly, just enough for you to see where you stand, and just enough for you to choose how to step forward. For Aries, this matters deeply, because you tend to move ahead, but don't always pause to look back. During these days, what's planted is not outcome. It's intention. Intention about how you want to live, how you want to love, how you want to work, how you want to exist in the world. And when that intention becomes clear, the universe doesn't need to force anything. It simply responds. With opportunities, with challenges, with crossroads that align with your choice. Not to test your strength, but to verify your sincerity. This is not a story about destiny already written. This is a story about partnership. When you live unconsciously, life feels like it happens to you. When you live consciously, you begin to see that you are co-creating the experience with the universe, not through control, but through deep agreement between what you believe and how you act. You may have spent many years moving fast, leading, being the strongest person in the room, but the energy of this phase, and of the year 2026 ahead, does not ask you to keep proving that. It asks one simple and very difficult question. If you've never slowed down before, which path truly fits your soul? A soul-aligned path is not always the easiest, and it's not always the one that brings the most admiration. It's the path where you don't have to leave yourself behind, where every step, easy or hard, does not require you to keep convincing yourself that everything will be okay. Because deep inside, you already know you're walking in the right direction. And if you're listening now, you may already feel this clearly, that you no longer want to live on autopilot, that you don't want to repeat old roles just because they're familiar, that you no longer want to carry expectations that don't belong to you. This doesn't mean abandoning responsibility. On the contrary, this is where you begin taking responsibility for your soul. If you're ready to step into a new journey of your own, leave a message in the comments. I choose the path that fits my soul. Not as a promise to anyone else, but as a confirmation to yourself that you've heard the inner call. Sometimes, speaking something aloud is enough for it to begin becoming real. You don't need to know exactly how 2026 will unfold. You don't need a perfect plan, and you don't need certainty that you'll never be wrong. What you need is the willingness to walk forward, with the awareness that every choice is shaping who you're becoming. And for Aries, that willingness has always been the most powerful beginning. If this video has brought you clarity, or simply made you feel understood, like and share it, to pass this energy on to other Aries who are still finding their way. Not everyone gets the chance to pause in time, to truly listen to themselves. And if your sharing helps even one person, do that sooner. Your journey already reaches beyond yourself. Remember this: you don't walk with the universe to be blindly guided. You walk with the universe to learn how to listen, to choose, and to act in harmony. And when you do, without rushing, without forcing, the right path begins to appear, quietly, without display, but strong enough to carry you forward, with a calm, steady trust in yourself. And that is the energy anchor you carry with you after this video ends. Not a prediction, not a promise, but a deeply human, deeply Aries choice. To live in alignment with your soul, even when that path asks you to be courageous, in an entirely new way.